the one group that is Democratic Party adjacent that we have said time and again does really great work is More Perfect Union.
Yes.
They do a really solid job of covering real stories that matter. And yes, they are very labor union driven and adjacent to the Democratic Party. And that's okay. Not every story you're going to agree with. But you know what you will agree with? I have been saying for how long now, as somebody who's in commercial real estate, private equity is taking over our entire country, especially our single family homes. And it's even happening in a state like Montana.
Why is this surprising? Don't you watch Yellowstone?
Oh, I didn't know that that would have anything to do with it.
Well, you're talking about real estate in Montana, yes?
Oh,
it's completely about That's completely the whole point.
It's a big deal. So, More Perfect Union covering a very important topic in the Big Sky State.
What happens to local residents when the government caters exclusively to those outsiders, tourists and the ultra-rich?
Yep.
It means that some of the wealthiest people in the country are buying multi-million-dollar vacation homes, and private equity is betting on luxury resorts and high-end development. Montana is creating a new generation of haves and have-nots, with some of the fastest growing income inequality in the country. And the modern Copper Kings are real estate developers and private equity firms. And the workers that are left out of this modern extraction economy are people like Charles Allen Touchton.
What you got? What you doing, Miss T?
Going through your eyes.
Yeah?
Yeah,
What did I do?
running that way.
It's probably where...
Looking good on camera, Charles.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to make this mug look good.
Charles Allen has been living out of his RV for almost 3 years. He's one of hundreds of residents of Bozeman that have been priced out of housing.
I am doing brakes on Miss Tina's van because
this is how she makes her money. You know, if this van's not operating properly, then
she can't DoorDash. She can't, so she can't make no money.
During the pandemic, remote workers flocked to Bozeman, and there was a 36% jump in people who make over $200,000 a year. In that same time period, Governor Gianforte made Montana a tax haven for the wealthy. Since 2021, he's cut taxes for the 1% and slashed corporate taxes. Housing prices have soared. The average single-family home in Bozeman is now over $830,000.
Can you imagine the average home in Montana, in a town in Montana? The average cost of a home in a state with a population that hovers around 600,000 is $830,000. Do you know how insane that is?
And so where are the working people supposed to live?
Sure as shit ain't it gonna be in Bozeman.
No, but where are the people that work in Bozeman supposed to live?
They're not living there.
Well, okay, so I guess they're not having workers there. So then who's going to be working at their restaurants and who's going to be...
Play, work.
Yeah.
You know, that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really works, let me tell you. No, it doesn't work.
And the average rent is up to $2,500.
$2,500
in Montana.
Rent in Montana.
That's crazy.
You try figuring that out. I am involved in a real estate investment project where the average rent, again, we are entrepreneurs, but we are not private equity giants. And this area is really desirable and it's by the Gulf Coast. And the average rent is almost $1,000 a month less than this. When you allow these private corporate equity giants to take over your community, you're fucked. It's over. And this is a place where it shouldn't be happening. Because usually in these rural conservative areas, people are very protective of their communities. Clearly money talked and justice walked.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's a resort and tourist town. But really, it's not a place where locals come and just hang out unless they're here to work.
Yeah.
Actually.
Cross Harbor Capital Partners is a private equity firm based in Boston that has been funneling money into the region for over 20 years. In 2014, Cross Harbor created a subsidiary called Lone Mountain Land Company, a developer that has built and owns half of the real estate in Big Sky.
You can kind of look up.
You have one private equity firm that owns half the real estate in one town.
Let it play for a bit. Let it play.
Been there a little bit. And there's a golf course out there somewhere. Clubhouse, membership costs the price of one of their multi-million-dollar homes plus some annual dues.
Some of the members include Justin Timberlake and Tom Brady, as well as
The
some very
cheapest
rich
people
people
I can
who
think
you've
of.
maybe never heard of.
Literally.
Waffle House chairman Joe Rogers Jr., Blackstone CEO Steven Schwartzman's son Teddy, the guy who founded Slack. Recent reporting from Forbes showed membership was up to $78,000 a year and a one-time payment of $500,000. And like Joseph said, the cost of buying or building your own mansion. Cross Harbor Capital has expanded Yellowstone Club to 885 members and has made the club into what amounts to a standalone city. Work trucks, vans, and commuters drive up and down the road leading to the club, which employs about 1,700 people during its peak season. 74% of the workers in Big Sky commute, and most of those workers live in Bozeman. Big Sky accounts for 1 in 3 of all jobs in Madison and Gallatin County, but none of those workers can afford to live there. In just a few years, the Bozeman tenants have won a lot. They helped introduce and pass a cap on the number of short-term rentals in the city, providing more housing for residents. And now they're fighting for 2 national bills: a right for every tenant to have legal representation when they face eviction, and a cap on any rental property that gets federal loans from the FHFA, which would include Bridger Heights.
They're profiting off of the fact that we're too scared to lose our housing.
On top of all that, they helped elect a new mayor who was a tenant organizer himself. And he says housing will be central to his platform.
And you know what? It's unfortunate that we have to report this, but our good friend Kat Uden, who ran for mayor of Hollywood, Florida, unfortunately lost her race against Josh Levy, who is, this is the exact same race.
Real estate developers. I can't believe how true that story is to Yellowstone. Like, it's amazing to me. Like, really, that's
Drawn from life. Well, isn't
yeah.
like a lot of,
Well, of course, Yellowstone
docudrama
makes
on
it
that.
sexy and violent, like literally, like, but the premise is building these like fancy high-end resorts that the people that live there can never afford to go to.
Of course. And therein lies the rub. It was a competitive race, but Levy had everyone
He had a lot of
within
money.
the power structure.
And it's like Debbie. I mean, they threaten people. Who knows?
100%.
They threaten, they blackmail, they do all sorts of stuff like that.
But
It's really gross.
But for such a grassroots campaign to only lose by 20 points is very impressive when you get right down to it. And that includes 2 people running in that race that had no business being there in the first place. So,
Well, there were 2 people that were essentially put in the race by Josh.
and that guy Flores somehow got 10% of the vote.
Right. What happens here, one of the strategies that people like that use when like somebody who's progressive gets in the race is they go and find someone else to get in the race and use that exact platform so that they just dilute the votes. And so they need less to win.
It's true.
And it's common, actually. It's disgusting. But that's the kind of stuff that people like him do.
You see, now when you think about the outcome of this election,
I told you my friend went to both those candidates' houses. I told you that, right? She went to both those candidates'
Didn't know
houses
that.
to meet them, knocked on their doors, and I, with very good knowledge and authority, can tell you that they were both basically shill candidates. Like, she met them, she's like, they're not even really any, like, you could tell. She's like, you could tell they're not even real.